Hello, my name is Darren Thomas and I'm the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, we're going to take a look at rationalizing two-term denominator of a radical expression. So let's go ahead and take a look at what I'm talking about. Now, when we're talking about two terms here, let me see if I can give you an example so that this is not so mysterious. So what we have is the following. So imagine I have 3 in the numerator, and then I have 1 minus the square root of 5. This is where we get the ideal of two terms at, because you can clearly see that I have the 1 as one term and the square root of 5 as the second term. And so in order to deal with this, because remember our goal here is to remove the radical expression in the denominator, because that can be very difficult in some instances when you're trying to do to deal with different mathematical expressions. So in order to do this, what we do is that we multiply the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate. Now, in case you've forgotten what the conjugate is, the conjugate is formed by changing the sign between two terms in a binomial. So again, instead of making this all theoretical, let me just draw this for you so you can see it. So I multiply as follows: by 1 plus the square root of 5, and then I multiply again here by 1 plus the square root of 5. The difference here between these two is right here, the plus. This is the conjugate of 1 minus the square root of 5. You just flip the sign to positive, you keep the same terms the same, and now you have the conjugate here. Now, when we multiply these across, we get the following. So let me go ahead and put this down below. We get 3, and then inside parentheses we have 1 plus the square root of 5 as seen here. And then inside the denominator we have again 1 squared minus the square root of 5 squared, like so. And you can see here that we're very close to being done. And so this simplifies to the following. We don't do anything to the numerator as we continue this journey here, if you will. This is going to be 3 times, 1 plus the square root of 5 as shown here. And then below we have 1 minus 5. That should not be surprising. The square root of 1 is 1, and the square root of 5 is the square root of 5 raised to the second power is 5, and we have the minus sign there. And of course, the final answer is going to be as follows. We still have the numerator being the same, 3 times 1 plus the square root of 5, all this over minus 4. That is our answer for the first example here. So you can see the process for doing this is not that complicated. You just need to be familiar with finding the conjugate and then following all the basic principles of algebra. Let's do one more example. This one will have a variable in it. And so here's our example. This time we have the square root of 5 over the square root of x plus the square root of 2. Now the square root of 5 is in the numerator. That's not a problem really. However, now in this particular example, like I just mentioned, the square root of 5 is not a problem. All we got to do is deal with our square root of x plus the square root of 2, and we do the same approach that we took last time. We use the conjugate of we use the conjugate like I was saying, we use the conjugate in this situation, and the conjugate is going to be something different this time because we're using a different value. So in this particular example, we're going to have the conjugate is going to be the square root of x minus the square root of 2, square root of x minus the square root of 2, like so. Now, when we do this, we get the following. Again, you should have an idea of what to expect here. We get the square root of 5 in the numerator multiplied by the square root of x minus the square root of 2. And then in the denominator, we get the following. We get the square root of x squared minus the square root of 2 squared. Now, what does that lead to? Let's continue the process here. We end up working this out as follows. The numerator stays the same as what you saw in the previous part. Got the square root of 5 times the square root of x minus the square root of 2 as shown. And then in the numerator, we have x minus 2. Again, not much different from the last example. All you have to do is remember that you must be able to find the conjugate of the denominator. And the benefit of that is that because the denominator is 2 terms, you can use the conjugate principle there where you just flip the sign. So before we conclude this video, let me explain to you what we've done so that we can wrap this up. So in this particular video, we were looking at how to deal with rationalizing a radical expression that has 2 terms in the denominator. And so in order to do that, you must find the conjugate of the denominator, and then you just multiply things across. It's not that complicated. And here, even though we had a variable in this particular instance, is still just basic math here. You do the conjugate, you multiply straight across, and that's essentially all you have to do. So I hope this video was useful for you and that you understood what was happening in this particular example. My name is Darren Thomas. I'm the Director of Educational Research Techniques. Take care.